Eleanor Hayes had not put up a Christmas tree in 9 years. The apartment on West 78th still smelled faintly of pine from the building's lobby, but inside her door, the air was stale, metallic, the scent of a radiator that never quite warmed the rooms. She kept the curtains drawn against the city's December glow, as though the colored lights strung across Central Park West might burn her if she looked too long. Tonight, December 12th, the wound felt fresh again. She stood at the kitchen counter slicing apples for a pie she didn't want, the knife moving in mechanical half-moons. On the radio, turned low so it wouldn't feel like company, Bing Crosby crooned about a white Christmas. Eleanor's hand slipped. The blade nicked her thumb. Blood welled bright against the pale fruit. 9 years ago, on this exact night, her husband Daniel had carried their 6-year-old daughter Lily down these same stairs, promising hot chocolate at the Rockefeller Tree. They never came home. Black ice on the Hudson Parkway, the police officer's face under the spinning red and blue lights, the way he kept saying, "Ma'am," like an apology that would never be enough. Eleanor wrapped the cut thumb in a paper towel and stared at the half-made pie. Cinnamon trembled from the shaker like red snow. She thought, absurdly, that grief had a season, and hers was always winter. The intercom buzzed. She ignored it until the third ring. When she finally pressed the button, a man's voice, warm, familiar, impossible, spoke through the crackle. "Ellie, it's me, it's Nick." Her heart performed an old betrayal. It leapt, then froze. Nick Carraway, no relation to Gatsby, was Daniel's younger brother, the one who had vanished to Colorado the Christmas after the funeral because, he said, he couldn't breathe in a city that kept killing the people he loved. 9 years of postcards, sporadic emails, money wired on Lily's birthday. Never a visit. Now he stood in her doorway in a shearling coat dusted with snow, cheeks raw from cold, holding a cardboard box like an offering. "I was in town for a conference," he lied gently. "Thought I'd try." Behind him, the hallway was strung with tired tinsel the super had hung in 2019 and never taken down. The foil stars drooped like exhausted angels. Eleanor wanted to slam the door. Instead, she stepped aside. The box contained Lily's ornaments. Not all, Nick had kept some, but enough. A glittered macaroni star from kindergarten, a glass ballerina with one arm missing, the year they made salt dough handprints, Lily's tiny palm forever captured beside Daniel's large one. Nick said, "I found them in Mom's attic when she moved to the home. I thought, maybe this year." Eleanor's throat closed. She took the ballerina, cradled it like something alive. "I can't," she whispered. "I know," he answered, "but I'm here anyway." 3 days later, Eleanor found herself walking beside Nick through the holiday market, snow starting as a lazy swirl that thickened into earnest flakes. Vendors sold roasted chestnuts and felted mittens. Children dragged parents toward a brass band playing to "O Come All Ye Faithful." The city decided to be beautiful whether she allowed it or not. Nick bought her a paper cup of glühwein. The spices burned her tongue in the best way. Nick asked, "You remember when Daniel tried to make this? Set the stove on fire, blamed the cloves." She laughed before she could stop herself. The sound startled her. It felt borrowed from someone happier. They paused beneath a canopy of fairy lights, snow caught in Nick's dark hair like misplaced stars. Nick said, "I'm selling the cabin, coming back to New York, for good." Eleanor's spine stiffened. "Why?" "Because running only works until the road ends." He met her eyes. "And because Lily would have hated that her 2 favorite people stopped speaking." A child ran past clutching a glowing balloon. The light bobbed red, then green, then vanished into the crowd. Eleanor's voice came out small. "I don't know how to do Christmas anymore, Nick." Nick said, "Then let's be terrible at it together." Her name was Clara Moreau, and she appeared the way complications do. Suddenly, beautifully, ruinously. Eleanor first saw her at the hospital where she worked as a palliative care nurse. Clara was visiting a patient, bringing poinsettias that looked too alive for the oncology ward. Auburn hair spilled from a red beret. Her laugh carried down the sterile hallway like bells. Later in the elevator, Clara said, "You're Eleanor Hayes. You took care of my father last year. He spoke of you until the end." Eleanor mumbled thanks, eyes on the floor numbers. Clara's gaze was soft, but unflinching. "He said you have kind hands that make people feel less afraid to die. That's a kind of miracle, you know." The doors opened. Clara stepped out, then turned back. "I'm singing at St. John the Divine on Christmas Eve, midnight mass. If you need a place where it's acceptable to cry in public, the acoustics are excellent." She left behind the faint scent of oranges and evergreens. That night, Eleanor dreamed of red coats walking away down endless hospital corridors. Nick moved into the spare room that still smelled of Daniel's books. They argued about everything, whether to buy a real tree, he was for, she against, which boxes from storage to open first, whether bourbon belonged in eggnog. He insisted tradition demanded it. She called it coping. One evening, he unearthed the angel Daniel's mother had sewn the year Lily was born. White velvet, one wing slightly crooked because Lily had helped. Eleanor's breath stopped. Nick held it out. "Top of the tree?" She backed away until her shoulders hit the window. Outside, snow blurred the city into watercolor. "I can't pretend she's coming down the stairs Christmas morning, Nick. I can't hang her angel and act like, if I just do the rituals right, time will unbreak." Nick's voice cracked. "I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to remember out loud, with me, because I'm tired of doing it in silence 3,000 miles away." He set the angel gently on the table and left the room. Later, when the apartment was dark, except for the streetlight bleeding orange through the blinds, Eleanor picked up the angel. The crooked wing felt warm, as if someone small had just been holding it. December 20th. Eleanor came home to find Nick at the kitchen table, surrounded by envelopes addressed in Daniel's handwriting. "Where?" "Mom's attic again. He wrote them the Christmas before. He asked her to mail one every year on Lily's birthday. She couldn't bring herself to do it after the accident. I found the whole stack." There were 9 letters, one for every year Lily would have turned older. Eleanor's legs gave out. She sat hard on the floor. The top envelope read, "To my Lily Bean, age 7. Nick knelt, tears tracking clean lines through the dust on his cheeks. "We don't have to open them tonight." But her fingers were already tearing paper. Daniel's voice leapt off the page, alive, laughing, talking about teaching her to ice skate, promising Disneyland when she turned 10, saying he loved her bigger than the moon. By the 4th letter, Eleanor was sobbing so hard she couldn't see the words. Nick held her the pages for her, reading out loud when her voice failed, both of them crying like children. When the last envelope was empty, the floor around them glittered with torn paper snow. Nick whispered, "I miss him so much I sometimes forget how to breathe." Eleanor reached for his hand. "Me too." For the first time in 9 years, the apartment did not feel too large for the grief it contained. December 26th. Clara called on the 22nd. I'm curating the music for a charity gala tomorrow night at the old Villard houses. Black tie, champagne, the works. I have an extra ticket burning a hole in my pocket, and I thought perhaps a palliative care angel might like an evening off from death. Eleanor almost refused. Then she looked at the tiny tree Nick had insisted on, a scraggly tabletop thing, decorated only with Lily's surviving ornaments, and heard herself say yes. The ballroom was a fever dream of crystal and candlelight. Chandeliers dripped like frozen waterfalls. Evergreen boughs heavy with oranges and ribbons scented the air. A string quartet played Vivaldi's Winter, slow enough to break hearts. Clara found her immediately, resplendent in emerald silk that made her hair look like fire. "You came," she said, wonder in her voice. Eleanor, in the one black dress she owned, felt plain, until Clara's gaze made her feel seen. They drank champagne. They danced, first politely, then closer. Clara's hand at the small of Eleanor's back was warm, steady, terrifying. Across the room, Nick watched, something complicated in his eyes. Later, on the balcony overlooking Madison Avenue's silent snow, Clara asked, "What are you most afraid of, Eleanor?" "That if I let myself feel anything again, the world will punish me by taking it away." Clara brushed a snowflake from Eleanor's eyelashes. "Or the world might surprise you with mercy." Inside, the quartet began, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." The minor chords felt like bruises. Clara said, "I lost someone too, not the same way, but I know the particular silence that follows." Eleanor closed her eyes. Snow settled on her cheeks like cold communion. Christmas Eve day. Nick and Eleanor argued in Central Park while skaters twirled beneath them to recorded carols. "You're falling for her," Nick accused. "I'm not." "Don't lie to me, Ellie. I know what longing looks like. I've been watching it on your face for weeks." "And what if I am? Am I not allowed? Is grief a life sentence?" Nick's face crumpled. "He was my brother. And she was my daughter. He was my husband. But I'm still breathing, Nick. And it hurts, and I hate myself for it, but I want to feel something that isn't pain." Snow muffled the city. A child's laugh floated past like a ghost. Nick whispered, "I'm scared if you move on, there'll be no one left to remember them with me." Eleanor reached for him. He stepped back. That night, he did not come home. Eleanor went to St. John the Divine alone. The cathedral was ablaze with candles. Thousands of voices rose in O Holy Night. Clara's soprano soared above them all, pure and aching. During the homily, the priest spoke of the stable, not a place of romance, but of desperate refuge, animals and excrement and a crying baby and parents terrified they would fail him. God, he said, doesn't arrive in our perfection. God slips in through the cracks. Eleanor wept without shame. Afterward, Clara found her in the narthex. "I heard about Nick," she said softly. "He thinks if I love again, I'm erasing them." Clara took her cold hands. "Love doesn't subtract, it multiplies the light." Outside, snow fell so thick the streetlights looked like halos. 2 a.m. Christmas morning. Eleanor walked home through empty streets. At the corner of 78th and Amsterdam, she saw a figure sitting on the stoop, coatless despite the cold, snow piling on dark hair. "Nick." She ran. He was drunk, shaking. In his hand the crooked-winged angel, now snapped clean in half. I went to the cemetery, told them I was sorry, told Daniel I understand now why he loved you so hard it scared him, told Lily her uncle's a coward. Eleanor sat beside him. Snow soaked through her dress. "I broke her angel. I broke the last and she touched." Eleanor took the pieces, fit them together. The break was clean. It could be mended. "Nothing's unfixable. Not angels. Not us." Sirens wailed somewhere far off. The city held its breath. Nick looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. "I've been in love with you since I was 19 years old, Ellie, and I hated myself for it the second Daniel brought you home beaming. I thought if I stayed away, the feeling would die. It didn't. It waited." Merry Christmas to the broken and the healing alike. The stable was never perfect. The light still found its way in.